This is a quick look at the captain's outboard panel in our own Vulcan, just to explain a little bit about what is down there. Starting at the very back is the engine start panel. It comprises a start master switch, nothing else works without being turned on, and an ignition switch, likewise off or on, and an air crossfeed magnetic indicator, which lets you know whether or not air can be transferred across the aeroplane to start all of the engines from one which is already running. This is a gyro hold-off relay, not used very much. This is the mass rapid start button, used during a QRA scramble, for example, which starts all 4 engines simultaneously, amongst other things, for example, the powered flying controls. Individually, engines can be started lots of different ways. Rapid start, using the onboard rapid start air system, or with normal selected, using air from a Palouse air starter outside of the aircraft. The red buttons are used in both those cases to start, to initiate the start sequence of each individual engine. This is the main UHF radio found in the Vulcan and many other of the aircraft in the museum. It's known in the Vulcan as RT2. There is another radio, RT1, unsurprisingly. Main control switch off, transmit receive and guard, which is the UHF emergency frequency of 243.0, and the ADF volume switch. The rotary switch here lets you speak on up to 20 odd preset radio channels without having to dial them up manually. For those frequencies that you don't have a preset for, they can be dialed up manually using these rotary switches at the top. This is called the station box. Something like it will be found in most of the multi-crew airplanes at the museum. There is one station box for each of the crew stations in the Vulcan. Split into 2 parts really. The rear portion of it is to do with both speaking and listening at various selections. So here's the rotary switch, off. Conference intercom lets the captain in this case talk to anybody else in the aeroplane privately who's also got conference intercom selected. HF radio, RT2, the one we've just talked about, RT1, and the standard crew intercom. So this switch lets you speak and listen on these facilities. The front half only lets you listen on basically the same things that I've just talked to you about. Notice here is a warning receiver audio thing, which is where you listen to the sounds generated via the 18228, the radar warning receiver, and try to work out what it is that's trying to shoot you down. This is the terrain following radar control panel. It has a power on and off switch. Turning it on turns the system into standby, and then this switch going forward to on activates the terrain following radar and obviously turns this to an on indication. This is the height selector that were available to you down to 200 feet with a reset, test and normal operating 3-way toggle switch here on this side. Various bits of kerfuffle here. The important one here is this switch on the inboard section, which is turns on the abandoned aircraft light, the big red panel in the back, and also initiates emergency decompression of the cabin. Moving forward, it's covered up, but this is the Bombay doors control panel basically. It would allow the captain to open or close the Bombay doors manually, Should take about 8 seconds to open them with all the hydraulics working, and a central position which is called auto, which meant that the bomb doors would operate to open and close according to the demands placed on it by the nav bombing system, which is the automatic weapon release system in the aeroplane. Just forward of that is the radar altimeter control panel, basically an on-off switch, a test switch, so you'd be confident it was working. And you could set 2 separate height ranges for this instrument. Either it would show a scale of 0 to 500 feet, or a scale of 0 to 5,000 feet, depending on what phase of flight you're in. Immediately forward of that, again, is the captain's oxygen regulator. Again, you'll find something quite similar to this in many of the aeroplanes in the museum collection. This is a magnetic indicator, blinks black and white to show that you are actually breathing oxygen. This is the supply pressure. Normally, if memory serves, should be between 2 and 400. This little toggle switch gives you an overpressure to mask, for example, if you had smoke or fumes in the cockpit, and this turns the whole thing on or off. Moving backwards towards the captain's seat, this incidentally is the seat raise lower lever, so you could move the seat pan up and down by moving this lever. Right at the front of this inner panel, which is all to do with the aircraft auto stabilization and powered flying controls system, which was quite advanced for its day. Right at the front, a field lock switch on and off, turn that light on and off. It was switched on above 250 knots to stop the fuel system operating, basically in case it ran away uncontrollably above that speed. Moving back a little. This next long thin panel is to do with PFCs and auto stabs. I'll just stop it there. All along the outboard section is to do with the auto stab system, and all along this inboard section with the amber lights you can see there is to do with the powered flying controls. The 3 lights at the front, 2 blue, 1 amber, to do with the auto Mach trim system, which basically kept the airplane's nose from pitching down uncontrollably at high speed at high level. Then there are, you can see 2 of them, there are 4 pitch dampers along this panel. We'll come back to those in a minute. Along the inboard section, there are 8 of these lights actually there are 9 of these lights in a line. 4 on this side, 4 on that side are the stop buttons for the powered flying controls of the elevons at the back of the wing. These are numbers 5, 6, 7 and 8. 1 for each of the elevons. These are 2 rudder powered flying control unit stop buttons. The rudder, unlike any other one, has 2 PFCUs. The inboard one is the main stop button for the main rudder, and the outboard one is what was called the auxiliary rudder. So that's basically an emergency rudder if the main failed. Moving backwards. Actually, in some ways it's a repeat of what's already come. So this is now the port side of the aeroplane. So the 1, 2, 3 and 4 powered flying control unit stop buttons. Here's the remaining 2 pitch dampers of the 4 that we talked about. There's also a yaw damper, 2 yaw dampers. Select number 1 or number 2. Sometimes when you start them, these got out of sync, so in order to get them all to talk to each other, basically, you could press this comparator button, which would, with a bit of luck, put all of these lights out, which meant the system was serviceable. And then right at the start of the trip, to start the powered flying controls with these 3 buttons here: aileron, rudder and elevator channels. Aileron is deemed to be the outboard pairs of elevons, the rudder, the main and the auxiliary, and the elevator channels with the inboard pairs, so 3 and 4, 5 and 6 on the other side. So all started in a sequence once electrical power was available on the airplane, 200 volts power, and each of them could be stopped individually by pressing one of these stop buttons. I hope that's been of some interest. Thanks very much.